So Rassie Rasmus and the Springboks have named their side to take on Ireland in Durban, and it is unchanged. We're going to get into all the nuts and bolts of this team, how I think they performed last week, how I think they're going to perform this week, a couple of different selection options I would have made. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments of this unchanged team. If you haven't, please make sure you absolutely mud that subscribe button. Still about 85% of you guys that watch this channel on a regular basis are not subscribed. Let's get into it. I do think the Springboks didn't play a great game on Saturday against Ireland. Ireland as well didn't play to their best, and it was a kind of a bit of a messy game at times. But there's a reason that Rassie Rasmus has gone unchanged for the second test against Ireland. It shows how much the Springboks want to win the second test against Ireland and win the series 2-0. But I also think there were a little bit of growing pains on Saturday, which will hopefully be fixed by the time we get to Durban on Saturday. The Springboks obviously under a new game plan with the influence of Tony Brown coming in from New Zealand, and we saw that game plan be utilised on Saturday. They didn't kick nearly as much, especially with Jamie Osborne playing 15 for Ireland, debuting for Ireland. He normally plays inside centre for Leinster. I thought Handré Pollard was going to put up a lot more bombs, a lot more contestable kicks that Cheslin Colby and Curtly Arendse would then chase on to put in a lot of pressure on him. But again, we saw that Tony Brown influence, a lot more attacking rugby. Damien de Lende, instead of crashing the ball up the whole time in the midfield, let the ball fly to Willie Leroux, and they really utilised those outside channels. We saw the likes of a Jesse Creel have a very, very good game in the system. He won man of the match, and there's a reason for that. He played very, very well, made a lot of meters, and you can kind of see the versatility and the dynamic capabilities that these outside players do have. If you think back to 2019, the Springboks hardly played any running rugby, and you didn't see the likes of Damien de Lende and Jesse Creel getting used to their max, to their full potential. Lukhanyo Am was back in the team back then, and he was probably the most versatile, dynamic player that we had back then. But now, in this new game plan, there's a lot more that the Springboks can do in the backline, and with the forward pack operating like it did at Loftus in Pretoria, I think the Springboks, when they tie it all together, is going to be very, very dangerous. Now, I kind of want to go through the team a little bit and reflect on the performances of these players, and maybe a couple of talking points and potentially some changes to the lineups that I would have made. So in the front row, Ox, Bongi and France, I mean, you know what you're going to get from them. You're going to get scrum penalties, you're going to get big carries, you're going to get good seals at ruck time, and that's exactly what Ox, Bongi and Frans Malherbe did. Eben and Franco Mostert were a little bit quiet in the lock position. I don't think Eben had a particularly great game. He's normally a little bit more in your face, more dominant, but Ireland did seem to close him down quite well. Franco Mostert also quite a quiet game. Then Siya Kolisi, there was a lot of chatter before the game at Loftus. He's fat and transparent. Well, Siya Kolisi had a very, very good game. He made so many massive carries, getting over the gain line, getting the Springboks on the front foot, and then able to go wide through the Tony Brown impact. Pieter-Steph du Toit always has a good game. I also thought he was a little bit quiet, and he did play 80 minutes, but I don't think he was quite at his best, and maybe it's just this new system that the Springboks are working on. Maybe he doesn't quite know where to be at specific times, but Pieter-Steph du Toit is a quality player, and we can expect him to put in another very, very good 80-minute performance down in Durban. Then Kwagga made a couple of errors off kickoff, a couple of knock-ons, but Kwagga Smith also played 80 minutes, and he is sort of that utility forward that Rassie Rasmus likes to use, likes to move around a little bit. And I think Kwagga, once Jasper Visser's back, I do think Kwagga might be pushing Jasper Visser for that number 8 jersey. Obviously, we've got Ivan Roos, we've got Pepsi Buthelezi, Cameron Hanekom is going to be fit in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see where Rassie goes with that number 8 position over the next couple of weeks. Then in the back line, I thought Faf and Handré Pollard looked a little bit flat in this new system, maybe just finding their feet. They haven't played together for a long time since the Rugby World Cup final. And I think it was just them trying to find their feet a little bit. Wasn't as fluid as it normally is. Handré Pollard didn't have a great game, and I do think we should speak about that a little bit. Yes, he is Mr. Consistent, but on Saturday, and I've seen a lot of comments saying maybe the game wasn't big enough for him. He plays semi-finals in a Rugby World Cup and finals in a Rugby World Cup, but if Manie Libbok had that performance that Handré Pollard had against Ireland on Saturday, Manie Libbok would have been crucified for it. And I just think we need to recalibrate our settings. Handré Pollard didn't have a good game, and I am quite surprised to see him starting. Yes, I get it's a new system. Yes, I guess Rassie's trying to build into this new system, but I potentially would have preferred to see Sasha Feinberg and Ngumazulu start. I think he was great coming off the bench against Wales. He was great coming off the bench against Ireland in that number 10 role. Yes, he only played 6 or 7 minutes or whatever, but I think to test Sasha Feinberg and Ngumazulu against a team like Ireland in that number 10 position is something I would have potentially experimented a little bit with, and also adding to the fact that Handré Pollard didn't have a great game against Ireland at Loftus. So that's maybe one tweak I would think about. You still have Pollard on the bench, but Sasha then starts really test him out in that number 10 position. Kirtley and Cheslin both had very good games. Cheslin scored a great try. Pollard went for touch. James Lowe kind of threw it back in, and Cheslin created his own try. And that's the real sign of a good wing. Not a real good wing isn't someone that just gets given opportunities. Cheslin Kolbe made that opportunity for himself and ended up scoring the try, and that, how you look at it, could be the decisive try that ended up winning the Springboks the game. Then into the centre pairing, Damien de Allende and Jesse Kriel. Now they will be the most capped centre pairing in Springbok history after the game on Saturday in Durban. Again, I'll touch on it. I think Damien de Allende had a very good game. We saw a different style of play, him passing instead of bashing it up in that 12 channel the whole time. Jesse Kriel just keeps on improving, and again, it's going to be very difficult to see where Kane and Moody fits in. Where does a Lukhanyo fit in? How is Rassie Rasmus going to balance this depth and give players opportunity, but also keep the combinations together? Then Willie Leroux, I think Willie had an okay game. A couple of his passes weren't as accurate as they normally were, but Willie always creates so much space on that pitch for the likes of Jesse Kriel, for the likes of Cheslin Kolbe and Kirtley Arendse. And as the system keeps working, as these players keep practicing this system, I think it's going to be very lethal, because the replacements that came off the bench on Saturday at Loftus, the bomb squad, Malcolm Marx, Gerrit Steenkamp, Vincent Koch, Salman Murat, and Argeus Snyman, Marco van Staden made such a big impact. We saw that scrum in sort of the 77th minute where they scrummed Ireland over their line 5 meters, got a penalty try. Again, that could have been the deciding try in the game, but it just shows that Rassie Rasmus and the Springboks coaching staff, their game plan is working. That 6-2 split on the bench is super dangerous when you have the likes of a Malcolm Marx, a Vincent Koch. I thought Gerrit Steenkamp stepped up to the plate and delivered in that game, showing that he could potentially be a Springbok that we take to the 2027 World Cup. I didn't know if he was going to start this game against Ireland in Durban. I think he started at Loftus, or didn't start, came off the bench at Loftus, because that's his home ground, and I'm glad to see that Rassie's given him another shot in Durban. I thought Salman Murat stepped up to the plate. He's a youngster, he's probably a future leader of the Springboks, and to see him come on in sort of the 50th minute with the entire bomb squad and perform the way he did, perform the way the bomb squad did, is very impressive. Then the two backs coming off the bench, Grant Williams, Sasha Feinberg and Ngumazulu. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get a little bit more game time in this second test against Ireland. Like I said, I would have potentially started Sasha, really thrown him into the deep end to see what he can do in that number 10 position. Grant Williams at Durban, his home ground, would have been very interesting to see him start, but I do think he's going to get a little bit more time in that number 9 jersey. So what can we expect from this team on Saturday in Durban? Look, Ireland were battered and bruised after that Loftus test. They have about 5 or 6 injuries, and that's exactly what we said before the Pretoria test. We knew that the Springboks were going to go there and bully Ireland and really put them to the sword, and that's exactly what they did. Ireland now have to deal with a plethora of injuries, and the Springboks are unchanged. And that system that Tony Brown has implemented is just going to keep getting better. And I think, although it wasn't a great performance in Pretoria, I think they're going to work on a lot of those mistakes, and we're going to see a very good Springbok side on Saturday. The forwards are going to dominate, the backs are going to get a lot of space out wide, and I do think if Ireland don't pitch up, the Springboks could win this one by 10, 15, maybe even 20 points if everything is clicking in the right ways. I think Rassie Rasmus back in the side, the most capped Springbok side now ever in history, that is going to play on Saturday. It's nice to see that he is back in the players, but I am looking forward to those Portugal tests, to those rugby championships, to kind of see a little bit of a different Springbok side, give other players opportunities to really see the depth that we are creating. Let me know what you guys think on this unchanged side for the Springboks. Let me know your predictions for this week's Saturday in Durban. If you haven't, please make sure you absolutely murder that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.